The years of war, weakness, and chaos will be over. I don't have wars. I had no wars other than ISIS, which I defeated, but that was a war that was started. We had no wars. I could stop wars with a telephone call. I could stop wars with just a telephone call.
Wow. I think the vision he has for America seems promising. I think he's really going to make some changes to this country for the better.
Yeah, it seems like it, but is he actually going to keep his promises? I don't think he will.
President Donald Trump has broken promises he has made in the past. In doing so, he's increased the cost of living for working-class Americans, as well as landing us in a war that could have detrimental impacts on the U.S. and the globe. President Donald Trump has made everyday living harder in America for the average working-class family. Quote, "Since Trump took office, 49,000 manufacturing jobs have been lost." End quote. Many middle-class workers have lost their job when it was expected to be an influx in American manufacturing. The working class has lost hundreds of thousands of jobs, most of them being jobs for workers without college degrees. Workers losing their jobs makes them rely on government aid that is not well enough funded to support an influx in need. Quote, "Americans increasingly cannot afford the basic building blocks of a healthy, stable life." End quote. Half of all Americans have had to tap into savings to cover everyday expenses. 2/3 of Americans have had to buy cheaper alternatives to their groceries or have bought less food altogether. 250 million Americans will face health insurance premium increases far exceeding inflation, wage growth, and Social Security adjustments. Quote, "On July 4th, 2025, President Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act into law. To partially offset the cost of trillions of dollars in tax cuts, the legislation includes nearly $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid." End quote. Medicaid typically helps families and individuals with low incomes or disabilities. Losing funding to support so many in need forces them to choose between debt or suffering. This bill leaves 30% of adults 18 to 24 who are on Medicaid vulnerable to losing coverage. Without proper health care, people may not receive care due to excessive out-of-pocket expenses.
See, a whole bunch of broken promises right there. Do you still think he's going to make positive change to America?
Well, that's not the only promise he made.
Trump made a promise to the American people that there would be no new wars and lower gas costs under his presidency, but the U.S. went to war with Iran this year under Trump's command, in doing so raising energy prices. As seen in the graph, the American people's disapproval of Trump's international affairs have been steadily growing since his inauguration day and have hit a peak since the war with Iran started. Trump has caused mistrust towards the government by breaking his promise of not involving our country in any new wars.
But the war is necessary to stop Iran's nuclear threat to America.
But that's not entirely true. 2 days before the U.S. attacked Iran, they were in year-long peace talks with the Iranian government, talking about their nuclear program, and had finally come to an agreement. Quote, "A broad agreement was made for the return of full International Atomic Energy Agency oversight. Under IAEA monitoring and verification, Iran would get rid of its stockpile of 440 kilograms of uranium." End quote. America was actively in peace negotiations and had reached what could have been the start of an agreement when they had struck Iran. Striking a country while communicating with them will taint future negotiations with mistrust, causing more unstable and lengthy negotiations with other governments. Another complication will be what happens with the military. Starting a war means military personnel will have to be sent out into the line of fire or put in dangerous locations, meaning more U.S. casualties that could have been prevented. But more importantly, families will experience the loss of loved ones for a preventable war. Because of the war, vital paths that move resources and trade could be cut off. The war will affect trading between countries on a large scale. Crude oil prices hike up, and as one of the major components in gasoline, so do gas prices. The rise in gasoline prices can impact the daily lives of people. More expensive gasoline will cause the cost of living to rise for the average American even more than it already has. The infrastructure of America is not built to sustain an energy crisis. Cars are heavily relied on to get to and from work. If gas prices get too high, people will be unable to get to work, which could result in the loss of jobs. But the lack of flow of crude oil won't only impact the U.S., but the whole globe. If oil does not start flowing soon, the world will experience an energy crisis. An energy crisis has the ability to ruin a country economically if they rely on trade as their main source of energy income.
Yeah, still gonna vote for him though.